you're a Niner fan who's been very frustrated by this offseason, I have some good news potentially for you. I'm also going to explain why this upcoming NFL draft is so important for the future of the San Francisco 49ers and how the Niners planned ahead. Maybe looking ahead at some of the moves they've already made here during this 2025 offseason and how it influenced what they did in the 2024 NFL draft. Let's begin with this. This is the 49ers Report. I'm Chase Sr. Thanks for hanging out. Are people sleeping on the San Francisco 49ers going into 2025? Despite losing several starters, the Niners still have a lot of talent. And clearly the odds makers agree. You look at the Super Bowl 60 odds, and with the 49ers losing the likes of Deebo Samuel via a trade, Charvarius Ward to the Colts, Trey Greenlaw and Talanoa Hufanga to the Denver Broncos, Aaron Banks to the Green Bay Packers, among others who have left this team, you're thinking the Niners are bereft of talent. There's no way they are Super Bowl contenders. They have the sixth best odds to win Super Bowl 60, behind the reigning champion Philadelphia Eagles at plus 650, the Baltimore Ravens at 7-1, Chiefs at 7-1 as well. You have the Bills at plus 750. They have gone all in this offseason, and I think for Buffalo, this is the year with the Chiefs now vulnerable after getting embarrassed by Philadelphia in Super Bowl 59. The Lions at plus 950. And I know that San Francisco distant from the other teams here at 17-1, but they're still sitting there with the sixth best odds to win Super Bowl 60, which, by the way, is going to take place at Levi's Stadium in Santa Clara. And then you flip the page to the NFC West odds. I don't agree with where the Niners are, but when you're in the business of sports gambling and you're an odds maker, there's a lot of importance here. And you put a lot of stock in Super Bowl odds, divisional odds, and future odds. And the 49ers right now are favored to win the NFC West at plus 130, ahead of the Rams at plus 175. Young, improving defense that played very well down the stretch, an offense that still has Matthew Stafford and Cooper Kupp, who is now left, but they replaced him with Devontae Adams. They still have Puka Nacua, really good offensive line. Kyron Williams, their running back. Sean McVay as their head coach. They were a few plays away from beating the Eagles in the divisional round. They were the only team in the playoffs that gave Philadelphia a fight. So I think the Rams are better, but the odds makers don't. Seattle Seahawks don't really know their plan moving forward. 6-1 odds to win the division, and then the Cardinals at 6-1. And this is a year after San Francisco really struggled inside the NFC West. But when you think about this Niners team from a macro standpoint going into 2025, and you base it off of the odds from Vegas, maybe this is what the odds makers are seeing, right? That the Niners still have a lot of talent on this team. On the offensive side of the football, they could be banking on Brock Purdy rebounding from a bad 2024. And we know that he has so much talent. We know that he's put up elite production. We know that Christian McCaffrey can certainly help him out. It was disastrous last year for McCaffrey to only play 4 games, especially when he was starting to look like himself against the Buffalo Bills, and then he hurt his knee in that game. But when McCaffrey is right, he's one of the best overall players in the NFL. George Kittle, best tight end in the NFL. Chase, he's not better than Brock Bowers. Brock Bowers doesn't block like George Kittle. And so I think Kittle is better. Can Brandon Ayuk return to the all-pro form from 2023? Maybe, and we're not sure when he comes back, but there's a possibility that happens. Ricky Pearsall showed some things at the end of last year. Jawan Jennings had a career year. Trent Williams is still one of the top left tackles in the game. Dominic Pooney, mean beast at right guard. And then on defense, Nick Bosa is the Defensive Player of the Year talent still. Fred Warner is all-pro Fred. You have 2 good starting cornerbacks on the outside in Diamador Lenore and Renardo Green. And Malik Mustafa is a really intriguing, young and developing player at that safety position. Now, of course, there are issues with how this team is built and how it's constructed with 1 week left in the month of March. The issue with how the Niners are built right now, their success in 2025 will rely heavily on hitting on their draft picks, number one, and those draft picks actually performing and playing, giving this team something right from the jump. There can't be a redshirt year for a lot of these rookies. They are going to have to play and play well in sizable roles in 2025. And Albert Breer, I thought what he said was very interesting because this is a pulse from an NFL insider, a guy who covers all 32 teams, and he said, I think the death of the 2025 Niners has been greatly exaggerated. I've used the 2023 Rams and 2024 Bills as examples over the past few years of perennial winners who consciously decided to take on a bunch of their medicine after rolling up cap debt, chasing championships, and you can see it for sure in the amount of dead money the Niners are accumulating. It's about $78 million as of right now, pre-June 1, in cap charges for players no longer on the roster. While a good chunk of the core of the 2023 Super Bowl team is gone now, the Niners did get ahead of a few potential losses, signing Brandon Ayuk, Yamador Lenore, Juwan Jennings, Colton McKivitz. And that's with Nick Bosa, Fred Warner, Trent Williams, and Christian McCaffrey intact as all pro foundational pieces to build around, and with the big contract for Brock Purdy coming. We'll have more on this in the coming weeks, but the reality is after spending $334.5 million in cash in 2024, the 49ers are still at $223.3 million committed for this year per cap tracking over the cap. The bottom line, if they hit on draft picks and get good coaching, such as those Rams and Bills teams did, the Niners will be just fine. On top of that, and obviously there are a lot of what-ifs in order for it to come to fruition for San Francisco, good coaching, players performing, draftees producing, players staying healthy. But on top of all of that, the 2025 opponents for the Niners, it's an easier slate than what we saw in 2024 when the Niners had the worst rest disadvantage in the NFL and one of the most difficult schedules in the NFL. This upcoming season, they have one of the easiest schedules in the NFL. Their home opponents, the three other divisional teams, Seahawks, Rams, Cardinals, and then the Falcons, Panthers, Jags, Titans, and Bears, all at home. You can win all of those games. And then away, divisional teams, Seahawks, Rams, Cardinals, on the road against New Orleans, Tampa Bay, Houston, Indianapolis, New York, and Cleveland. That is an easy and doable schedule. Something else that the odds makers could be factoring in here. So you look at the 2025 opponents there. What will the Niners' record be this upcoming campaign? Give me your record predictions down in the comment section right now. If you want a Niners jersey for this offseason or the 2025 season to support your squad, get yours today thanks to our friends at Fanatics at chatsports.com/49jersey. All types of different sizes, colors, styles, and players available. You can go with recent OGs like Nick Bosa and George Kittle. You can go with GOATs like Joe Montana and Jerry Rice. All types of jerseys available if you simply use that link down below. It's very easy. chatsports.com/49jersey. I'll put that link down below in the show notes and attached to the pinned comment of today's Niners Report. All right, we move forward here on the show. While the San Francisco 49ers do have a lot of talent with this 2025 roster, they still have a lot of holes on this team. And that's why myself and a lot of fans aren't sure what to make of this team going into this upcoming season. Obviously, we don't know what they're going to do in the 2025 NFL Draft, but there's a lot of risk with this team and how they've approached this offseason. There are a lot of what-ifs. Rookies from this 2025 draft class will have to play big-time roles this upcoming season. We're talking about these players giving the Niners immediate contributions. And not just playing well, but playing well as starters, steady contributors, and being foundational pieces of this organization for the future. Because the future of the Niners really does hinge, with all of the holes on this team, on the 2025 draft and the 2026 draft. And so this puts a lot of pressure on this front office to nail this draft specifically. Because San Francisco is very light at a couple of different positions, in particular along the offensive line and the defensive line. If the season were to start tonight, I think San Francisco has a bottom 10 offensive line and a bottom 5 defensive line. They are simply not good enough to compete as it stands right now with the offensive line and defensive line as currently constructed. At cornerback, you need players and depth there. At linebacker, you need depth and players there. Running back, it's a big question mark with Christian McCaffrey and Isaac Guerendo and their injury history. At wide receiver, what happens with Brandon Ayuk? If he does play for this team in 2025, when does he come back? And so with this Niners team, you can see what their plan has been, right? And John Lynch told us this at the NFL Combine. We want to get cheaper. We want this roster to be more affordable. We want to get younger. And so the Niners have let a lot of players go, freeing up a lot of coin and also eating a huge dead money charge for the 2025 season. That's left this team with a lot of holes, and it makes this NFL draft in 2025 at the end of April pivotal. Because if the Niners miss on a lot of these picks, when they already have a lot of holes on this team and they're bereft of talent, it could really set this organization back. I mean, look at this Niners starting defensive line as of right now. Yetur Gross-Matos, Jordan Elliott, Evan Anderson, and Nick Bosa as your starters. You can't last a full season with the lack of talent there up front. The good news for San Francisco is this is a very deep defensive line class in this draft. You can get some really quality defensive tackles rounds 1 through 4 and some quality defensive ends rounds 1 through 3. And the Niners are equipped here. This is what they set themselves up to do. They have 4 picks inside the top 100, 8 inside the top 160, and the Niners have to work off of last year's draft momentum. Ricky Pearsall looks as though he can be a player in this league. Renardo Green played really well opposite of Diamador Lenore at that outside corner spot. Dominic Pooney is a stud along the interior of this Niners defensive line. Malik Mustafa is the starter at safety going into the season. Jacob Cowing, Isaac Guerendo, they have a lot of pop. And now, if you hit on the 2025 draft like you did on the 2024 draft, you can really get back to this team being loaded with talent and these young players being cost-controlled assets. And you think about what the Niners have done, right? Planning last year, looking ahead to this year. They drafted Ricky Pearsall, traded Debo. They drafted Renardo Green, let Charvarius Ward walk. Drafted Malik Mustafa, knowing that Talanoa Hufanga was entering the final year of his deal. Drafted Isaac Guerendo, knowing that Jordan Mason's future was a little bit uncertain, and then the Niners traded J.P. Mason. Took Dominic Pooney, knowing Aaron Banks could walk, and nobody last year expected Banks to cash in for more than $19 million per season. But this is what good businesses do. Always plan ahead and always have foresight. And so to round this out, 2025 has the potential to be a very fun season. I always enjoy watching player development take place and scouting players and seeing what they can become. If the Niners hit on this draft, to see those young players come in here and be focal points of this team, that could be very entertaining. If the Niners miss on a lot of these picks in the draft, it could get very ugly. Hopefully it's the former and not the latter. Be sure to hit that subscribe button here on the show. Niners content all day, every day, right here on the 49ers Report. And thanks so much for your support.